Alright, my friends, gas prices have been going up like crazy, and today we are going to find out what happens if gas prices basically hit $200 per barrel. Well, I guess we shall see. Before I go into that, let me ask you for one thing. If you can leave a like, thank you so much. Is the best way to show support. Now, if you subscribe, well, in that case, forget about it. You make my day. Another thing, you can also wipe a video nowadays. Please do it if you see that option. Link for the original video below. Let's go.
Next time you fill up your car, it could literally break the bank. Iran.
Well, I actually did that yesterday, and damn, that stuff was expensive.
Just issued a threat that could hit everyone on the earth. Your gas, your groceries, your paycheck. It could send the global economy spiraling, and there is no escape. I'm Josh, and on today's episode of the Infographic Show, we're discussing the fallout as Iran tells the world to get ready for $200 a barrel.
Okay, $200 a barrel? Okay, let me check the price right now. Alright, my friends, I have good news and bad news. Let's start with the good news. Basically, we are very far away from $200. Now, the bad news. The graph is a bit insane. I hope we can stop this as soon as possible. Asking for a friend. Let's continue.
If the price of oil hit $200 or even got close, it could trigger one of the most devastating energy crises in modern history.
Well, but to be fair, that is basically doubling. You know what I mean? It seems very, very unlikely. Double the price, really? I mean, if the Strait of Hormuz stays closed forever, I can see it. But I trust the A-10. I trust the F-35. I trust the Marines. Please do something, my friends.
Kind of crisis that shakes economies, disrupts daily life, and ripples across the globe in ways most people can't even imagine.
And I'm going to say something controversial. I actually think American allies should help America here, because we are all suffering with this. I mean, we should work together, right?
As oil is, in many ways, the lifeblood of the global economy. When prices experience a sharp, sudden rise, it doesn't just impact the oil industry, it affects everything. Costs
It's basically a snowball effect.
of food, transportation, and manufacturing all start to surge in line with the rising rate of oil. This in turn has knock-on effects on things like inflation, interest rates, and the broader economy. And that's why energy markets matter so much. It's why
You know what? It's crazy because I know, again, we are all suffering with this. But I'm paying this house, and the interesting rates are going up right now. My contract will update in 2 months, I believe 2 months, and most likely I will be paying more. Well, that's not great.
even though it may feel a million miles away to many, the war in the Middle East could impact us all. On February 28th, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury. Multiple airstrikes were conducted against military sites and cities across Iran, killing the country's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, along with other Iranian officials. Iran responded with missile strikes of its own, directly targeting Israel as well as military and allied positions across the Middle East.
No, but the thing is, America ended up doing so much damage to Iran. You know, Iran is basically done. The thing is, the Strait of Hormuz is difficult to control because Iran have nothing left.
Been casualties on both sides, but Iran has little hope in matching the combined might of the American and Israeli armed forces.
No chance.
And it doesn't have the necessary firepower to counteract the U.S.'s world-leading bombers or Israel's massive missile silos. It does, however, have an invaluable ace up its sleeve. One it hopes could be powerful enough to potentially bring an end to the conflict. It's not a tank, it's not a missile or a bomb. In fact, it has nothing to do with the military at all. Instead, it's all about geography. The entire situation and the fate of the world as we know it rests on a single stretch of water in the Middle East, the Strait of Hormuz. It's one of the most significant and strategic waterways on the earth. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and the UAE all export massive volumes of oil to markets across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. And most of that...
Well, you know what? Let me check my Bitcoin. 1 second. Oh boy. It's it's also going down. They told me Bitcoin was better than gold.
Oil has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz to reach its destination. Nearly a fifth to a quarter of all global gas and oil shipments flow through this narrow passage, making it an indispensable artery of the world energy system. Iran knows that. It understands that its biggest weapon in this war is its close proximity to the Strait of Hormuz, and it intends to leverage it to the maximum effect. That's why just days after the conflict began, Iranian officials issued a stern, stark warning. The country's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, vowed not to allow even a single liter of oil through the waterway. An IRGC spokesman said that any vessels in the area with links to the US, Israel, or their allies will be considered a legitimate target, adding, "You will not be able to artificially lower the price of oil. Expect oil at $200 per barrel. The price of oil depends on regional security, and you are the main source of insecurity in the region." Countries...
No, being a bit serious. I was serious, but, at the end of the day, we have to have fun, But if this goes to $200, which I don't think it will. If I had to predict, oh man, this will age so bad probably. But if I had to predict, I don't think this will happen. Source André, trust me, bro. You know what I mean? But if this happens, I think this is catastrophic for sure. I cannot even imagine, well, yeah.
Often make bold proclamations and chilling threats during wartime. It's designed to intimidate their enemies or pressure them into backing down. But this time, it's not a baseless claim or an empty threat. Iran is quite clearly capable and willing to follow through on its promise. It's already shown that with its actions. The country has already been seen deploying mine-laying vessels into the strait, lining the waterway with dozens of deadly explosives. What was once a safe and profitable passageway has turned into a veritable death trap. According to intelligence reports, Iran has more mine layers waiting in the wings, with the potential to plant hundreds of mines across the strait, should it choose to do so. The IRGC also boasts other explosive boats and shore-based missile batteries that it could use to beef up its offensive capabilities in the area. On top of this, Iran has already taken direct offensive action against several ships that have attempted to pass through the strait. Numerous vessels, including oil tankers, have been targeted, with dozens of crew members having to be evacuated and rescued as their vessels went up in flames. If the war continues, incidents like these will likely become more frequent and, unfortunately, far harder to prevent. Here's why. Even though the Strait of Hormuz can be up to 60 miles wide at certain spots, the vessels traveling through it have to follow a specific network of narrow shipping lines. This is because so much traffic passes through such a narrow stretch of water that it has to be managed with extreme care to avoid collisions and other dangerous incidents. As a result, at any given moment, multiple massive tankers might be moving through the strait, each carrying millions of barrels of oil while navigating tightly defined shipping corridors. If anything obstructs those corridors, the entire flow of traffic through the strait can slow down or become paralyzed. Iran knows the routes that these tankers have to take. It knows exactly where to plant its mines, aim its missiles, and position its own vessels to block them. On top of all of that, there's also the important matter of insurance. Shipping companies rely on insurance providers to cover their vessels as they travel around the world, especially in...
Oh yeah, no insurance company will, unless they are crazy. Oh man. Yeah, this is scary. This is really scary, actually.
Risky regions like the Strait of Hormuz. When geopolitical crises erupt and tensions boil over, insurance premiums skyrocket. Not only that, but some insurers decide that the risks are simply too great and they refuse to provide any kind of coverage. If companies can't get their tankers insured, they won't want to run the risk of sending them through the strait. So even if U.S. forces stepped in to clear the mines or escort ships through the strait, traffic would still almost certainly decline and prices would still rise. For many shipping companies, the risk of sending enormously valuable tankers through such a volatile and dangerous corridor would simply be too great. And that's why the price of oil rose almost instantly once the war began, soaring past the $70, $80, and $90 marks, eventually hitting $110 in early March. Even if the conflict turned out to be short-lived, it still would have a notable impact on the flow of oil through the strait. Oil markets also tend to move very quickly during moments of tension, war, and other crises. Traders, like investment firms and hedge funds, are always thinking several steps ahead. Oil is...
But you know what? The stock market, I was actually watching that, and it's been, is not having the best mount, to be fair. But I thought it would be down more than it is, you know. It's still doing okay, I feel like. So this makes me believe that people investing also expect this war to end soon. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, I think everything is a bit inflated right now.
Is heavily traded on futures markets, where contracts.
But to be fair, the stock market is very inflated with all the AI companies, you know.
Thinking several steps ahead. Oil is heavily traded on futures markets, where contracts are made to buy or sell oil at a set price at a future date. Large companies, national governments, and major investors all take part. If there is any indication that prices are about to spike, they rush to buy contracts at higher prices in an attempt to get ahead of the game. This creates a kind of snowball effect, pushing the price of oil upward before a crisis or shortage has actually happened. And then once the crisis kicks off, the snowball gets bigger. As more contracts are snapped up at higher prices, the average cost of oil barrels skyrockets. More traders jump in.
Well, you know what? Good thing I only buy Pokemon and Magic the Gathering cards. Those are so safe from all of this, right?
Hoping to cash in, and then the price climbs even higher. Momentum.
I also buy soccer cards.
Rockets. More traders jump in, hoping to cash in, and then the price climbs even higher. Momentum takes over. Even if the situation on the ground stabilizes or never escalates as feared, oil prices can still spiral out of control. All because traders and investors are chasing profits. We've seen this exact scenario play out several times in the past. During the 1979 Iranian Revolution, oil prices more than...
Okay, actually people told me about this. Who watching right now remembers this situation? If so, tell me how this ended up impacting your life, because this seems a crazy situation also.
Times in the past. During the 1979 Iranian Revolution, oil prices more than doubled and global inflation surged. During the Gulf War,
$34, the good old times. I guess back in the day it's like $200 now probably.
Or in the early 1990s, the price of oil saw another sudden spike, rising from $17 per barrel in July of 1990 to $36 a barrel just a few months later. That's why Iran's warning about $200 barrels of oil matters so much.
But look, my friends, am I missing something, or this impact Europe and even Asia, for example, China, more than the United States? Because you guys have a lot of oil, right? We don't. So, and why are we not, you know, helping America to open the Strait of Hormuz? What the hell am I missing? You know, shouldn't we be the ones that, open that, please?
If it might be exaggerated. Words like these have a real impact on the market, and that in turn affects everything else. If you're enjoying watching the world collapse, go ahead and hit like, share, and subscribe.
Me also, my friends.
We got a whole lot more doomsday scenarios on the channel.
Even more doomsday?
Pretty realistic. So will oil actually reach $200 a barrel? Well, for now, it's almost impossible to say. Such a rise would almost be unprecedented. When Russia...
You know what, my friends? We are in the middle of the video. Most people just watch 5 minutes and that's it. Leave me the number one. If you don't think we are going to hit or surpass $200, leave me the number two, because 200. If you believe that will happen, I will read most of the comments or take a look at most of the numbers.
Invaded Ukraine, the price of oil surged dramatically. Russia is the third largest oil-producing nation on the earth, after the US and Saudi Arabia. Even
the US produces more than Saudi Arabia? What the... Wait, I thought Saudi Arabia was... Oh wow, America is first. You guys really like to be first, right? Something that you guys proud yourselves. Okay, a lot of oil. And I think this cartoon needs the Venezuela oil here. You know, put a couple of barrels more.
And then the cost peaked just under $139 a barrel, far below the $200 mark. This is a different and potentially even more economically damaging situation.
Okay.
As mentioned earlier, 1 in every 5 barrels passes through the Strait of Hormuz. What happens next depends massively on how long that passageway is restricted. If the war continues and the situation shows no signs of settling down, bottlenecks will build up. Gulf oil storage facilities will reach their limits. Large oil fields may even need to be shut down until the conflict can be resolved. If that happens, prices will rise sharply. Analysts from financial and investment firms warn that oil could soar well past $100 and stay high for the rest of the year. The situation could also be made
I think that's likely, actually.
worse by additional attacks on oil infrastructure. There have already been reports of explosions and large fires at multiple oil storage facilities and depots in and around Tehran. At least
That's the crazy thing. A lot of infrastructure was destroyed.
4 oil sites ignited intense blazes and sent thick smoke across parts of the Iranian capital. The fighting has expanded to energy infrastructure, which adds another layer of risk to the supply. The timing of this conflict is also problematic. Energy markets were already operating in a highly challenging environment before the war even began. Global demand for oil is extremely high right now. Even though we're seeing more countries invest more heavily in green and renewable energy sources, the world still consumes more than 100 million barrels of oil on a daily basis. With such high demand, which is still rising year over year, there's very little margin for error in the oil industry. Even minor delays and disruptions can have genuinely dramatic effects on prices and supply. The war in Iran is much more than a minor delay or disruption. So it's not all that difficult to imagine the price spiraling swiftly out of control as the conflict rages on. If and when that happens, it won't take long for people everywhere to feel the effects. In fact, they already are. Reports show that average rates at gas stations around the globe are already rising. People in the US, Europe, and elsewhere are having to spend much more than before on a typical tank of gas. Airline ticket prices are also set to rise. That means international travel will start to cost much more. Shipping costs, too, will inevitably increase as oil rises. And those costs would ripple throughout the entire global supply chain. All forms of long-distance travel for goods.
Sorry, but it's kind of crazy. Now, again, being very serious, how dependent we are. Oil runs the world still. I know a lot of green energy nowadays, but good old oil, you know what I mean, is still so important.
And people will become more expensive. Food prices will most likely also start to surge as farmers and distributors adapt to the rising fuel prices. And then there are the everyday items and industrial essentials that are made from petroleum products. They too would become more expensive to make and to transport, and would therefore have to be sold at higher prices to consumers. At a time when people around the world are already grappling with rising living costs and inflation, the average household budget would face ever greater strain. For some, it may be even too much to bear, because oil and inflation are directly connected. When the former goes up, so does the latter. If oil gets more expensive, businesses across almost all major industries are faced with higher costs. Manufacturers spend more on energy and transportation. Retailers spend more on getting goods from warehouses to stores. Companies can't simply cover all those extra costs on their own. They either...
Man, we don't have a break because COVID was so damn crazy with inflation. I feel like we are going to have a second wave. I know inflation is something that is always happening, right? But for us to be okay should be around 2%, 3%. But it's like 10%, not now, but around COVID, it was crazy. Certain things end up going up 25%.
Either have to risk complete collapse
double.
or pass on some of the burden to their customers. And that means you. When so many industries are experiencing a similar
the customer is the one that pays always.
burden to their customers, and that means you. When so many industries are experiencing a similar scenario, inflation across the entire economy begins to accelerate. The usual response to this is for central banks around the world to raise interest rates, but that too has numerous knock-on effects. Higher interest rates increase the cost of borrowing, leaving people with less disposable income to spend. That typically results in slower economic growth. In short, when oil rises this much, this quickly, the economy gets stuck between a rock and a hard place. There are no easy ways out, no obvious solutions, and no matter what happens, the situation is guaranteed to get worse before it gets better. Looking back to past examples...
Okay, we need to send more A-10s to Iran. I'm starting to believe that could be the solution. How many A-10s are still in America? Send all of them there, my friends.
Of similar situations, we've even seen oil price spikes ultimately result in large-scale international recessions. The higher costs of so many goods and services eventually proves too much for both businesses and consumers to cope with. Should that happen again here, then it doesn't even matter how long the war in Iran lasts. The rest of the world will feel its effects for years to come. Almost everything will become more expensive. Businesses will buckle beneath the pressure. The gap between the wealthy and the rest of the population will widen even further. Is there any way this crisis can be averted? Well,
Please answer yes. Okay, my friends, we are going to finish well. Sum up.
governments do have some emergency tools available to help them manage an energy crisis of this kind. Many countries have created strategic petroleum reserves, stockpiling large amounts of crude oil that can be released into the market if supply begins to shrink. But these reserves are limited. They're designed primarily to provide temporary relief during brief periods of delay and disruption before the normal order is resumed. They're not a long-term solution. While they can help stabilize markets for a short time, they would do little to offset the massive losses that would occur if the Strait of Hormuz remained closed for days, weeks, or even months. When literally millions of barrels of oil per day are taken out of circulation, the impact of that is almost impossible to offset. Some countries can also turn to their increasingly large pools of renewable energy sources to help them manage the crisis. The likes of solar and wind energy could prop up businesses and keep power flowing into people's homes. If there is one silver lining to emerge from this crisis, it may be
I actually have 2 solar panels, but I don't think I'm safe.
That more countries see just how important green energy truly is. They might start to invest more heavily in eco-friendly initiatives and sustainable technologies to minimize the impact of future wars and oil crises. They may also look at new policies and ways to minimize their reliance on imported fuel. When the next crisis comes, they won't feel the heat as badly as they do today. But as touched on earlier, data shows that oil is still in enormous demand. There simply isn't anywhere near enough green power to counteract such a massive
I don't think the fans and the panels are going to help for now.
disruption in the world's oil supply. And so, for now, all signs suggest this crisis will not only continue, but will most likely worsen for as long as the conflict lasts. Unless the situation changes quickly and dramatically, fewer and fewer tankers will be willing to risk navigating the increasingly dangerous Strait of Hormuz. And as a result, fewer barrels of oil will leave the Gulf states and reach countries around the world. Industries will struggle, costs will climb, and everyday people will bear the burden. The world teeters on the brink of an unprecedented economic crisis, and while there may still be time to prevent it, that window is closing fast. If nothing changes soon, the consequences could be catastrophic. The world could be headed straight for a reality we've only imagined.
Come on, why the world is going into a dark hole? What the hell is this?
Check out, this is what'll happen when the world...
Okay, yeah, right. Interesting video, I would say. Makes you think, to be fair. But I mean, there is nothing we can do, right? I'm saying us, regular people, right? Interesting stuff for sure. My friends, tell me, again, 1, it will not happen. 2, André, be ready. $200 a barrel is happening. My friends, love all of you. Hope you guys have an amazing day. Thank you for watching. Bye.